as a young person at Guttmacher. This isn't just something I do after college. This is my job to survive in one of the most expensive cities in the U.S.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
All right, folks, we have got Ashley Little, a member of the organizing committee for the Guttmacher Institute. The Guttmacher Workers United, I believe, is the name of their union. They are in the middle of a union election right now, and we wanted to go for the first time ever into double overtime to talk about this, because we were not planning on doing this until this absolutely freaking ridiculous article came out the other day from Ryan Grimm in The Intercept about the article is titled "How Elephant in the Zoom Meltdowns Have Brought Progressive Advocacy Groups to a Standstill at a Critical Moment in World History." And the thesis of this piece is basically that the staff at progressive nonprofits who make at all of these places, you look at all of these nonprofit unions that are coming up, their starting salaries are something like $35,000-$40,000 a year. Even people that are not just starting out there are not making a whole lot of money. And these are in places like New York and D.C. And we have also chronicled over the course of this show, over the course of interviews with workers in the SPLC union, with Kayla Blado, current NLRB press secretary, formerly president of the nonprofit union, exploitation that nonprofit workers uniquely face. And the thesis of this article is basically that these workers are big, whiny babies who have no conception of what's going on in the world and have no interest in changing the world and are complaining about really silly things. And it was just so frustrating to me. It was incredibly frustrating to me because this is happening in one of the institutes that the article really focuses in on is the Guttmacher Institute, who, like I said, is in the middle of a union election right now. And the most frustrating thing to me is that over the course of this article, which is an insanely long article. I mean, I don't know. I should have got the word count for this, but it is a ridiculously long article. It took me, I believe, 20 minutes to read the whole thing. Now, I'm not a fast reader, but still, 20 minutes for an article is a really long time. Over the course of this article, they snidely and derisively quote a tweet from one of the union's Twitter accounts and do not consult the staff or the leadership of the union. And they do not mention the salary disparities between the executive directors, who are the ones being quoted for this piece, and the staff who are being lambasted by this piece. They do not mention that the Guttmacher Institute has retained Jackson Lewis, notorious union-busting law firm. They do not mention any of this. They do not mention any of the real issues that nonprofit workers face, like being exploited for their care of the thing they are working for, which is a pretty unique thing in a service-based, a care-based role. In a place like a progressive nonprofit or a nurse or a teacher or something, you can uniquely exploit their desire to serve in the capacity of their profession. And so none of this is mentioned. This is all glossed over in favor of the boss's line, which, I mean, is, it's something that I might would say in another, but literally Ryan Grimm only quotes bosses in this piece, and it's infuriating. And so we're not going to do that. We brought on Ashley Little, and so I set the stage. I hope I said it I hope I said it well. And Ashley, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us during what I can only imagine is an incredibly frustrating time. And yeah, so just thank you very much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the pod.
So, what else would you add to my setting the stage? Is there anything that you think that is important that I missed that you would want to pull out of the article, or that was left out of the article? That what else do you think that the audience would need to have a proper understanding of the stage?
Yeah, I think something important to note is, and you probably the audience and you already know and have been thinking about it, is the Roe decision that's upcoming. Greatly affects our work, is very directly tied to our work. And how are we going to, deal with this extreme, pressing issue without a sustainable and healthy workplace?
Yeah, I think that is that's. And so, what is it that the Guttmacher what is it that the Guttmacher workers are trying to address through unionization? What are some of the things that y'all are looking for that you feel like would make Guttmacher a place more capable of meeting the moment?
Yeah, so the Guttmacher Institute is widely known for our incredible research on sexual and reproductive health. Activists and organizations all over the U.S. and the world use our research. And this unionization effort has been a long time coming. We currently have over 70% support from eligible staff members. And the feelings, or I guess, what people want out of the unionization effort varies, but there are some, similarities for a lot of people, no matter what job they have. I think the biggest things for Guttmacher are, like we mentioned before, salary. So having higher salary bands that follow inflation and that are livable for New York and DC. Other things are fair and clear pathways to promotion. Staff retention is a huge issue. Our policy departments, and if you think about Roe, probably one of the most important, this is their moment to help shape policy and explain what's going on to people, was completely, in the past year, whittled down to just a few people out of a team of, I don't know if I know the entire amount of people on that team, but like 15-ish people, So staff retention is a huge thing. And on kind of the opposite ends, I think a lot of workers at Guttmacher really enjoy the benefits that we have, the vacation, the sick leave, the maternity and paternity benefits, and we want to keep those benefits and keep them safe through a contract.
Right. And so why is it that you think that the executive director at the Guttmacher Institute and executive directors, boards, management across the nonprofit space, of course, maybe there seems to be more willingness perhaps in the nonprofit space to accept unionization, but there has been some very, very vicious anti-union stuff, and when y'all asked for voluntary recognition, the Guttmacher Institute said, okay, we will voluntarily recognize you if you sign a no strike clause as a condition of recognition, which is
a no strike and non-disparagement.
And non-disparagement. I mean, just an absurd, a silly thing to ask. And, why is it that it doesn't even, recognizing the union and going into bargaining doesn't even necessarily mean that y'all are going to get every single thing that you're asking for, which you should probably, in my view, but even let's say, just why would they not recognize the union that their workers are? Why would they not respect the people that they hired to make this decision for themselves and respect the legal process in this country and the rights inherent that I think workers have or ought to have?
Yeah, so I definitely can't know what our president Herminia Palacio or any of the executive directors think about the unionization effort. But I can think of some ideas of like what executive directors across the repro movement are feeling about this, especially with the article that just came out. I think it's a lot to do with power, with sharing power, with allowing workers to have a say in what we do with our lives and our work lives. I think a big thing is, we're a reproductive justice, well, more like reproductive rights organization, and repro rights and workers' rights are very similar. It's all about controlling your life, having a choice in what your life looks like. And I think with the non-disparagement and no striking, I think it has a lot to do with wanting to make our union smaller, make our union less powerful. And that was something that we could not give up.
Right. Of course. I mean, and that's, it was, I said earlier it was silly. It's insulting. It's like a slap in the face is what it is. A restriction on speech and a restriction on the most fundamental weapon that labor has in negotiations is the withholding of your labor. Asking you to do those two things as a precondition for recognizing your union is really, really, really insulting. And so why then, and we'll get to the piece more in a moment, or get to actually the meat of the thing, but why do you think in the writing of this piece that Grimm did not talk to y'all or talk to anybody in the myriad of institutions and the milieu that he's attacking here?
I think it would just be a very, very different story. Yeah, that's basically it. Right.
Well, so and then tell us what you think about the thesis of the piece, because I'm interested in that, because and this is and I can just say I was talking to Adam before the show. I am somebody as a leftist in the South, a leftist unionist in the South, I am somebody that is predisposed to the idea potentially that excessive wokeness or insularity or a lack of grace to people that we're working with, to people that we're organizing with, to other workers. I'm sympathetic to the idea that could be a problem. But the way that he went about making this argument is just insane to me. But I'm sympathetic to that as an issue. What are your thoughts about some of the things that it says? I mean, do you think that there is a there in a certain sense, and it just there needs to be a drastic reshaping of the thing around the workers' point of view, or would you be of the opinion that there's simply no there?
Yeah, I guess I agree with you that, I have my own personal qualms about cancel culture, in kind of the larger space. But I don't think it really applies in the case of workers trying to unionize their workplaces. Management has so much power over us. I don't think I could, me as a junior staff member, I don't think I could cancel higher ups in my organization. And I don't want to. I think the point of unionization is not to cancel or demean or to create divisions. It's to have a proper and clear pathway to communication and working together. I think one part of the article that really struck me is talking about young people in organizations. In the article, he says that, workplaces are becoming more young, more people of color, more women, et cetera. As a young person in the movement, I feel like that's a great thing. Right. We are some of the most, all the identities that I hold make me more susceptible to the fall of Roe. Abortion rights aren't just something that they affect me on a daily basis. And I don't think it's a bad thing to include people who are most affected by these issues in the movement and in Guttmacher.
Mm-hmm. And so, the fact the fact that you would be willing to entertain a critique of and the article makes an interesting point about I would prefer not to use the right-wing framing, but the right-wing framing of cancel or call-out culture or whatever, it seems, when you say that, people know what you mean, or kind of generally speaking. It seems to me that there would be an article to be written about this, at least that includes the perspective of the workers, as opposed to executive directors making $300,000, $1 million a year that are worried about the people that they have the authority to unilaterally hire or fire being upset with them. It's just...
There's no greater cancellation than the termination of your employment.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what
people at the Guttmacher Institute, as a place with at-will employment, I'm not speaking to any allegations or lack thereof of their practices with regards to hiring and firing, but as an employer that does not have just cause disciplinary procedures in a union contract, you are at the mercy of being canceled by your boss for reasons not associated with your productivity, with your work output. And the fact this article doesn't contend with any of that. There's no grappling with the fact that workers are in progressive nonprofits and outside of progressive nonprofits are at constant threat of being canceled by their boss.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think there's definitely a culture of fear of stirring the pot or bringing up issues in the workplace. And that's why we want to form a union, because doing it by yourself is scary and it's oftentimes doesn't work because of that power difference. And so through a union, it's collectively all of us of Guttmacher Employees United coming together to help each other.
So in the paragraph above the one that you mentioned about workplaces becoming more younger and more diverse and things like this,
which is a good thing. That shouldn't be controversial, but just to be clear.
Right. A former executive director said that, my last 9 months, I was spending 90 to 95% of my time on internal strife, whereas before, that would have been 25 to 30% tops. How do you feel about that claim? What does that track in your mind as accurate or plausible? Do you think it's totally made up? What are your thoughts here of that statement?
Honestly, I don't really know, because I don't know what my executive directors are doing all the time. I think maybe forming a union would help us, have more clear communication about work, duties and how we can work together.
Right. Common sense dictates that with a collective bargaining agreement in place, with a recognized union in place, with a process for negotiations and for conflict resolution, if hypothetically there is all this internal strife that they're dealing with, what better way to navigate that and to come together and actually work through some of those issues than with a recognized union? Because for one thing, as employees amongst yourselves as a union, of course, that gives you the ability to work amongst each other to resolve any differences y'all may have. But, to the broader point, though, there's an established avenue for management to sit down with workers to deal with this internal strife that allegedly they're dealing with so much.
Right.
I find that incredibly hard to believe, but again, that's I think it really shows the author, who typically I enjoy a lot of Ryan Grimm's articles, but it shows that he was incredibly out of touch with the perspective of labor and workers and just his whole framework of this piece. And I just can't get over that. I can't get over the fact that y'all are doing the right thing here, but are being demonized here. And I don't think it's a lot to ask for nonprofits to practice what they preach.
Right.
For anyone to practice what you preach, and I think that's something Jacob mentioned earlier. We've talked with a lot of organizing workers at nonprofits and media institutions, and other progressive employers, and that's often what it boils down to is that the workers are committed, dedicated, passionate. As you said, these issues are not just hypothetical for you; they're real. They're your experience, they're your daily life. And so, it is insulting. It really is insulting to take that kind of approach because in my experience and in the conversations we've had with workers such as yourself, I am 100% in belief that all of y'all are trying to do the right thing and ultimately make your organization stronger. Which is it's not as adversarial as perhaps this article makes it out to be, or as management tends to make it out, because obviously you're committed, or you wouldn't be there, and you wouldn't work as hard as you do, and put in the time and energy that you do to try to fulfill the mission of the institution.
Yeah, definitely. I think most of us came to Guttmacher really excited. I think a lot of people at Guttmacher, this is the place they want to work. This is the place they've always wanted to work. We're all, to do this work, this really difficult work. You need to have the passion, and you need to have, the want and, the passion to fight for reproductive rights. And it's like, we're not trying to, we want Guttmacher to thrive. We want Guttmacher to continue on and do the important work that is necessary for our movements. And creating a union we're not trying to break down the organization. We're trying to build it up.
Right. And,
Absolutely.
I think that that's pretty obvious. Just in any instance, it would seem to me, but especially in progressive nonprofit spaces, that obviously you want better for yourselves, but that you want your organization to survive and to thrive. But one of the things that the article is basically alleging is that at the expense of that, you are wanting all of these silly things. And so here's another quote I'll throw at you, and what are like your first thoughts when you hear this? A lot of staff that work for me. This is a boss. They expect the organization to be all the things. A movement, okay. Get out the vote, okay. Healing, okay. Take care of you when you're sick, okay. It's all the things. Can you get your love and healing at home, please? But I can't say that. They would crucify me. And love and healing seem like the only things there. And look, you correct me are you asking for like hugs on the hour in your union contract?
Well, when I hear that quote, all I can hear is, wanting sick leave, wanting a non-toxic work environment, wanting
That's another way to put it. Is that you have sick leave. Wow. Take care of you when you're sick. Or sick leave is another way to put it. God, it's insane. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that you just can cut right through that, because non-toxic workplace, that's not an unreasonable demand.
Right.
That folks be treated with respect and dignity, because your working conditions affects the organization's output. And if folks are being mistreated on the job, or discriminated against on the job, or not supported just in general, ultimately that affects the ability of the organization to fulfill its mission. So, I mean, I think that's, and I appreciate that you and your brothers and sisters in the union are continuing to kind of hammer that point home. As you said earlier, it's not about breaking it down, it's about building it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sorry I interrupted you a little bit earlier, so you can, you can finish your thought.
I guess the only other thought I had for this specific question is, the amazing work that we're doing right now, right before Roe, is set to be, sorry, that's my sink, set to be overturned. The work that, like today, for instance, we released abortion data right before, Roe is going to be overturned, showing that abortions are increasing in many states, and right when Roe is going to be overturned. And you think about, this amazing work that we've been able to do in a toxic org, and what could we do in a non-toxic org,
Mm-hmm. And so what are some of the things that well, if you could say, what are some of the things that y'all have had to face that have made it a difficult place to work?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what kind of the demands that generally we want as a union. Clear and fair promotions, especially for junior staff who are among the lowest paid in the institutes. Being able to, I think at least from my perspective, I feel like the ladder that was there in the institutes, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, is slowly being taken away from junior staff during one of the most important times of reproductive rights in the U.S. history. And I think it's also, staff retention has been very difficult. We've been dealing with, low staff, and that's just made our work even harder, and, issues even more apparent.
Right. And those, a clear avenue for promotion, laying out the parameters. This is something that every single union contract deals with.
Or should deal with.
This is, bread and butter. This is not, we're not talking about, seriously, when you think some of these things that it is as if you are asking for hugs from your boss every hour on the hour, and that's simply not the case. And I can only imagine how like infantilizing that is as an adult who works, who does the work, who makes this organization run, who puts out the information.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing for me as a young person at Guttmacher, is just, the infantilization of our issues, of our wants in the workplace, that this isn't just some thing I do after college. This is my job to survive in one of the most expensive cities in the U.S. And I think in the article it talks about, at least it comes off to me as calling us, whiny babies. And, if I was a whiny baby, then that would be illegal. Like there's no, child labor. So, yeah.
Ashley, is there anything else that you feel like is important for our audience and potentially others who are listening to this that don't normally listen to us? Is there anything else that we haven't gone over yet that you think it's important for people to know as they are, grappling with this article and the allegations that it makes from one of the people that it is making allegations against, essentially.
Yeah, I think a big point of this article is to make unionization seem impossible or scary, or a detriment to your to the movement or your organization or your job. And I think from the support that we've gotten from other workers in the repro space, that's simply not true. Being a part of the unionization effort at Guttmacher has made me feel more connected with my coworkers, more connected with the movements, more connected with my work. And I think has made me a better, I'm not going to say like better worker, I guess, because I don't think I was ever a bad worker, but I guess just more, I'm able to be my best self to help the movement.
Mm-hmm. Ashley Little, member of the organizing committee for the Guttmacher Institute Workers United. Ashley, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, and please do let us know if there's anything that we can do to support you. Oh, well, how could the audience? Is there anything that the audience could do to support y'all?
Yeah, so one thing is to follow us on social media. We have both a Twitter and an Instagram. So the name is Guttmacher Employees United, but the @ is Gutt Union, spelled GUTTUNION. Keeping updated with where we are in the process towards unionization and anything that comes out from it. And yeah.
Ashley, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In solidarity.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.